Hi, and welcome back to my garden. We are indeed planting for next year already. I know it's mid-August, it's still hot and humid, and we're really at the peak of gardening season, but it does take time to get seedlings ready and in the ground well before the frost comes. So the first thing we're going to have a look at today is what I already have planted and in the ground for next year. So behind me here is the lower garden. We have 8 raised beds right here, most of which are housing some perennial herbs, although that's a bit in transition. And then behind that we have 7 in-ground rows about 12 feet long, which is where I'm going to be planting most of my cool flowers and crops for next year. I'm also testing a new microphone today, so hopefully this all sounds good. There is a crazy loud beeping sound coming from a couple houses over. So normally that would prevent me from filming at all. But if you can't hear that, then I am totally sold. So hopefully everything sounds good. So starting with the first row, we have the final succession of pro-cut sunflowers. And I'm expecting them to bloom in about 25 to 30 days. So that should be well before our next frost. Next to that, however, I have all my Rebecca. Now, we are a zone 6 here in Nova Scotia, Canada, and most of these seed packets list these fancier Rebecca's as a tender perennial in zones 8, 9 through 10 or 11. But I have heard people say they have successfully overwintered these in zone 6. But my plan is going to be to cut them down right at the base in the fall and just see if they overwinter. This row has the Indian summer, and the bloom size on this is really, really good. Then we have, this is all from the Sahara. These ones are doubles, although they have more of a coloring of the cherry brandy. I may have mixed up some seedlings. Here are some more of the Saharas. There's a little larkspur blooming in there. This one is a cherry brandy. I love that there's a good color variation though on the Saharas. Everything from this copper sort of dark peach to more of a brighter yellow. And just on the other side of these, this was a row I only planted about a week ago. These are carnations. Now I know that these will overwinter successfully because I did it last year. I put only half a dozen plants or so in one of my ornamental beds, but they grew and flowered beautifully. So I have closer to 50, and these are called Black King, and I do have a mix of some brighter pink colors as well. Next to those I have yarrow, and yarrow was planted last fall, but it is easily a perennial here in our zone. So I've harvested quite a bit of stems off of this, and the second flush is an awful lot shorter, so I'm letting them grow so that I can pick out my favorite colors and move them into a bit more of a permanent spot. So I love these darker pink ones here. There is a coral color that pops up. There's one, and there's another on the other side. But my favorite, which I've only just noticed, is this light buttery yellow. Now that one did not bloom at all during the first flush. I'm only just seeing it now, but I absolutely love it. And there's another one of those coral colors right there. So I will likely leave this entire row, maybe start a few more seeds to fill in the gaps, but otherwise leave this one as it is. Another spot that I'm going to be leaving alone is this feverfew. There is some magic lime green on this side and some tetra white over here. The tetra white was planted last fall, and when it flowered, it was gigantic, well over 3 feet tall. And the magic lime green I planted in the spring, and it wasn't nearly as tall, but I think I like these ones even more. So that is what I already have planted in the ground. Next up are the potted seedlings. Starting with the biggest, we have catmint. This I grew from seed this spring and potted up a couple of times. It is now in 1-gallon pots. These were for my seedling sale, but I kept the last 3 because I definitely wanted some as well. And it is looking very lush and healthy. In this tray I have some beautiful looking foxgloves. I think there are only 6 of those. I'm going to skip this middle one for a second. In the back are delphiniums. These are supposedly perennial here, so I'm going to find a permanent place to put those. along with this Aquilegia or Columbine. This one was from seed I saved. I don't remember where. It was seeds I found somewhere, but they are a double pink variety. And then these seeds were given to me by a friend, and she has a mix of a few different double Columbine varieties or Aquilegias. So a little bit spotty germination, but I have quite a few plants here. So I'm really happy with what did end up coming up. Now these are looking a little bit sad. These are Orangiums or sea holly. There's two different varieties. There's blue cap right here in the front, 9, and then 10 of the blue glitter right behind. And they are looking a little bit sad, but the roots look fine. They've most likely run out of space. They definitely need more nutrition. So I'm going to find a permanent spot to plant these as well, because I'd like to not have to move them once I've planted them. So here is a spot between two shrub cherries or bush cherries. It's just a short 12-foot row up against this little fence that we put up, and I don't really use the space at the moment. I'm going to move these cherries. I already know where they're going to go, but in the meantime I've put our 6 little foxglove seedlings in there, and that's going to really help to give this space some color next spring while I figure out what else I'm going to do with it. And the same goes for this row as well. In the past I've grown cucumbers and peas up here, which works really well to mask that little ugly space back there. We just tend to kind of toss things back there because you can't see it behind the baby barn. But from the garden area, it really helps to hide that view. So what I think I'm going to do is put the delphiniums up against, and then I'll put the Aquilegias in the front. And then once I figure out a permanent spot, because these are perennials, I will move them. But the ornamental beds need a lot of work at the moment, so I don't want to put anything else in there. So I think these will be just fine here for now. I think I might fill this entire spot. Weeds are not invited to the party. All right, delphiniums first. Those roots are pretty good. Oops, maybe not so much. Well, that one's looking a bit better. I know these get big, so I'm going to leave them a lot more space than the Aquilegias. There we have about an 8 to 10 foot row of columbine. There are probably 40 plants in here, but from the ones that I grew from seed last year, which was just a handful, maybe 4 or 5 plants, I know that they don't really bush out, at least not in 1 year. So, and my plan for these is once I see what color they are, because this is supposed to be a mix, is to separate them and then plant them out by color. As for the delphiniums, I'm second guessing this a little bit because I have seen these to be quite big bushy plants, but those are likely to be a bit more mature. So I'm hoping that those won't get big enough to crowd out the Aquilegias before they can bloom and I can move them to to a more permanent spot. So here is our front yard bed, and I'm going to talk more about our plans for this area in a future video. But this is basically just phase one. Now, we have extremely heavy clay and rocks. It is pretty impossible to get a tiller through here. So I laid down cardboard and covered it with what was supposed to be a good garden soil that I bought from a local company. Was delivered in a truck, and I was kind of ready for this because I went through this a couple of years ago as well. This soil is terrible. Just the amount of gravel and not all the way broken down wood chips in here tells me that is not garden quality soil at all. And if you're looking for evidence of just how bad this is, here is my second succession of sunflowers. They are beautiful, but they are tiny. And at best, 18 inches tall. I don't even think they're 2 feet. So they're perfectly usable. They're not really sunflowers. So unfortunately, this is where I planted all my amaranth, my celosia, all of my really nice fancy cosmos. There is one type that's doing surprisingly well, but all the other ones are so pathetic. But just last week, I gave it a good feed of liquid seaweed, a very good water, and I started just stuffing it with all my leftover seedlings that would otherwise go to waste. So I have nasturtiums, a few squash, some miniature branching sunflowers, and another bunch of zinnias that I had nowhere else to put. Oh, and bachelor's buttons. So I'm hoping with a little bit extra feed, I'm going to keep on top of the watering a bit more. Luckily, we've been getting some rain. We have more coming tomorrow. And my goal for this is really to cover some of the ground and maybe cover crop a little bit with those extra things. But for today, I am going to plant my catmint and my eryngium in here. I'll find space, and if I have to move them next year, then so be it. But I need to get them out of their pots. And before you ask, no, I am not going to name what company we got the soil from. I do plan on sending them an email, however. I am not one to complain, but a dump truck load of soil is not cheap, and I bought 2 of them from them. I've also spoken to at least 2, if not 3, other people this year who have had the same experience. So you saw me mix in a little bit of granular fertilizer, and I did the same to what was already planted here about 10 days ago, and some things are definitely looking better. So these have some nice roots to them. Being perennials though, they like to have a much bigger root system than you might think, which is why they're looking so pathetic in those 3-inch pots. So I don't expect much out of these for a week or so. I know there's at least a little nutrition in the soil now, but after a week, probably 2, during that time it'll be focusing on root growth, but after a week, probably 2, we should start to see some more top growth. Putting them in the ground and then moving them later is definitely better than leaving them in these pots. So I can't be the only one who plants way too much stuff not knowing where I'm going to put it, right? We put up with a lot of road noise and dirt bikes for that view, but it's worth it. So with these perennials, I'm pretty much just going for drifts of things. And like I said, I might move them, but I've got a bit of a drift happening here. So depending on what I decide to do next year, they might be okay where they are. There, that is the last eryngium. Now I have to do the catmint. So this soil isn't quite as deep as the roots, so I'm just breaking them up a little bit. But catmint is adaptable and it will be fine. And as that cardboard breaks down, the roots are going to go deeper into the native soil underneath anyway, so I'm not worried about that. That is why I'm choosing this type of thing to plant this year and not anything that needs a little more care and attention. To be clear, I'm not breaking off the roots. I was just removing the soil, so the roots are in there. They've just gone this way. There. Oh, that smells so nice. Catmint will not attract cats like catnip will. And done. So that is job done, and I do need to give everything a really good water. I did mix in a little of that organic granulated fertilizer. It's just whatever I found at Home Hardware, not my usual stuff, but it seems to be working in that front garden so far. The amaranth is looking better. At least the sunflowers have bloomed. I mean, they're not a total loss, even though they're small, but you know, some people squish them together to do that on purpose. Mine was kind of an accident. Oh, and I need to share with you the seeds that I will be planting probably tomorrow because it's getting pretty late right now. So I guess this pile of empty pots behind me shows that today was a success. So the other day I did go through my seed box and write down what I had left that could possibly be fall planted. I don't have everything that I wanted, but the most important thing is larkspur because I don't have any of that out there at the moment. So I will be planting larkspur first. Now I direct seeded this in the fall last year and I got one plant. You saw me show that plant in some spring tours and I think my succession planting video as well. It was interesting seeing how much taller that one plant was than all of those other seedlings that I planted in the spring. But I think the reason that most of them didn't come up was because the soil was too warm. So I'm going to start these inside this time and then transplant them out 5 to 6 weeks before our first frost, I think is the rule, which is about a month away. So I've got to do this now. I will be planting some yarrow to fill in the gaps in that row that I already have. I will be planting snapdragons because those overwinter here. I have 20 white, apple blossom, bridal peach, 20 pink, and sonnet crimson. I didn't plant my crimsons at all this year. For the Rebecca, I know I have those rows right there that I'm going to cut back and leave, but I am going to, I'll look at how many seeds I have left. I guess I might as well use them all. I'm going to order some more for next year anyway. I have some of each, the Sahara, Indian Summer, and Cherry Brandy, so I'm going to start some new plants and put them in a different location as well. And looks like I also have some more feverfew seeds. So now I think I have a lot of that, but I don't know if those are truly perennial or if they only make it through one winter. So I'm going to start a little bit more of that too. You cannot have too many flowers blooming in early spring, really. So that's it. Larkspur, yarrow, snapdragons, Rebecca, and feverfew. And there's a lot more that you can plant. There are a lot of resources on this. There are books. There's actually quite a few YouTube videos. Quite a few people have made good, resourceful videos right here on YouTube about planting cool flowers. So that's easy to look up. And it also depends on your zone too. We are zone 6. There's a lot we can plant, but there's a lot we can't that are hardy to zone 7 or 8. So that's something else I might do. I might try some of a few things that we are not supposed to be able to overwinter, but put them in the greenhouse. We don't have a lot of room in there, but I'd like to try some of those this winter. So that is all for today, everybody. Thankfully, it is cooling off. I've got to go in and have some supper and then start those seeds. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and happy gardening.